Too soon the last time again.
Good afternoon. We are I'm the cheese buyer. My name's Jeannette. I'm the cheese buyer at the Monadnock Food Co-op. And this is Brian, who is made these recipes even better. So we're gonna address you with elevate your tailgating with our sexy cheese recipes. We're gonna use some of our favorite recipes and some of our favorite cheeses, in these enticing recipes. You can serve them at your fall tailgating party, your Sunday brunch, or any weekend gathering with friends or family. So Brian lent me this book his cookbook that he has. And I just said, we have to cook these things. So Brian's gonna tell you a little bit about his book and the author, and all the recipes are from that. We modified a few of the cheeses, but all the recipes are based in that book.
So, hey guys, just to start off, the Cheesemongers kitchen. Chester Hastings is a fantastic chef. His knowledge is well beyond just cheeses. He's really spent his time learning the craft and learning what pairs with what cheese. How can I elevate the flavor, the creaminess, the texture? He really emphasizes everything when it comes to cheeses in these dishes. When I was lucky enough to get this cookbook, I started going through pretty much one by one, just trying everything I can. I'm really excited that Jeannette and I were able to kind of play around with some of these recipes. Honestly, this cookbook is kind of one of a one-for-all cookbook. It's going to start from just right into appetizers, right into tapas, small plates, sandwiches, soups. You have desserts. You're honestly going to find any array and a range of cheese recipe in this cookbook. This was a Barnes & Noble find.
Awesome.
I would definitely encourage everybody to at least look for it, take a gander at it.
Even from your library.
But yeah, borrow it from your library if they have that. Definitely just take a look at it. Take a look at Chester Hastings' other works. He's a fantastic chef and author. I highly encourage looking at his things. Other than that, I'm not going to talk too much longer because I think we should get into the food. That's the really important stuff.
We've done a lot of our prep beforehand, so we could show you the finished products and dive deeper into the cheeses we're using, because that's what I like to sell is the cheese. Talk about is the cheese. I want to sell my cheese to you, so you try them. And maybe these will become your favorites, or maybe they'll inspire you to try new spin-offs. There's a few quotes that I really liked out of the book that I'm just going to read you verbatim. As far as accompaniments or recipes, in selecting those things to serve with cheese, just consider not masking the flavor of cheese, but to contrast it in ways that further deepen the flavor profiles. The second one I liked was a good rule of thumb is if the cheese is salty, it wants something sweet. And if it's sweet, it wants something salty. That's maybe a little bit oversimplified, but it works. So we definitely have some savory, salty, and we definitely have some sweet going on here today. And the last one is that honey can be used to great effect on any number of cheeses. It seems like it doesn't go with cheese, but it's a very nice. It just cuts I don't know what it does exactly. It just
cuts that pungency. I really feel like that sweetness helps mellow out any super strong cheese.
So we're going to dive right into our appetizers. We thought were perfect for fall. The first recipe I picked out was a simple cherry tomato jam recipe, which is a sweet condiment with an earthy bit of tomatoes. And the idea might be unusual, but remember that tomatoes are fruit. So Brian can tell you maybe Bill about the recipe, and then I'll tell you what cheese I have it with over here. So this is our sweet tomato. Our cherry tomato jam is not sweet. Our cherry tomato jam.
To be honest, I wish I could have more to say about this recipe. No,
Okay.
honestly, I was just going to say it's a very, very basic jam recipe.
It has, pretty much you just I roasted the little cherry tomatoes, and then cooked it down with some sugar, added lemon juice, some zest, and some rosemary. So a cherry tomato jam is a nice pairing. We have Willoughby right here. This is the washed Willoughby.
The Iapetus.
It's a washed with the Iapetus type wine. And those are seasonal, so they rotate those. The regular Willoughby that we grilled before in the last workshop was also an idea, but it's a sweet accompaniment to this kind of little funky. It's a washed rind cheese, and it balances that earthy flavor of the orange washed rind, and it amplifies those umami flavors. You could also, I didn't bring you could use sourdough bread with it. You could use crackers to dip. You could just dip the jam, put it on top of your piece of cheese. Or you could put it in the bowl with your Willoughby. It would also go nice with a Taleggio or the Jasper Hill Oma, which are all washed rind cheeses. The Taleggio is from Italy.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't put it on a grilled cheese before too.
Okay, there you go. All right, so that's our cherry tomato jam, and our second recipe, our appetizer, are these roasted butternut squash with fresh pecorino and devil's honey, or we're using Mike's hot honey in this case, which is honey infused with chilies. So there's this sheep milk tang of the pecorino and the creaminess of the squash. Then there's the chili spiked honey is gonna cut through some of the richness of that dish. So why don't you tell us how you made that, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about pecorino romano.
Perfect. So this is a very, very simple dish, as you can see. Basically, all I ended up doing was taking this butternut squash, slicing it about 1/8 of an inch thick. If you can go a little bit thicker too, dealer's choice. Just keep in mind that the thicker the slice, the longer the bake on it. In this situation though, all I did was I took one. I did actually do a cookie cutter shape to it.
Fun with this one.
The other one I just left whole. You are going to want to peel the nut squashes. From there, all I simply did was get a very, very hot pan, some butter and a little bit of oil to prevent that butter from browning on you. And then basically just getting a really nice golden sear on it. Throw those in the oven at 350, about 15-20 minutes, gently placing that pecorino right on top. And then as Jeanette was just about to do, just very lightly drizzle with that hot honey. It does have a bit of a pack a punch to it. But other than that, absolutely fantastic. Garnish with salt and pepper, fresh cracked if you want. Other than that, any kind of fall herbs to garnish is, you couldn't do any better than this. I've made this one before for just like people coming over, not even necessarily pecorino I've done on it, even just a nice aged Parmesan works. You can also drizzle this with maple syrup if you want it to be extra autumnal and New Englandy.
I love anything with roasted butternut squash in it. So I was like, I need to try that recipe. So the pecorino romano that we use, pecorino is a kind of sheep. So it's a hard, salty Italian cheese that's often used for grating. And really the name pecorino just means ovine or of sheep in Italian. And it is simply means sheeps of Rome, which is the pecorino romano. So I have two brands. That I learned about pecorino is that it's an ancient cheese, been produced in parts of Italy for over 2,000 years. And it goes back to the Roman Empire when Roman soldiers used to actually eat this cheese, obviously because it was hard and dry and you could take it with you and pack it. Yeah, so the other thing about pecorino romano is that a DOP cheese, which means that it's a certification of quality that indicates it's made in a special place. It has to be made in a certain part of Italy with certain kinds of sheep with a certain process. We talked about it in the last couple classes. We talked about Gruyere is a DOP, name protected cheese, Manchego, Parmesan Reggiano. They all have to, you can't make those in New Hampshire. You can make similar ones, but you cannot make and call it pecorino romano.
As great as New Hampshire dairies are.
Yes. So we also have these, fun little pans to make them look even fancier, but the colors, the colors do the fall thing too.
Yeah, and you can even turn this into a casserole of sorts too. We've all heard of potato au gratins and things like that.
Yep.
You can do the similar thing with these using a butternut squash, layering them very nicely and just topping with a nice cheese dish and pairing it with a nice kind of protein and just vegetable on the side.
Yeah. And then we are going to move into sandwiches and flatbreads.
So as much as we love appetizers, we got to move on.
We have to move on. Here so we can see it. There we go. All right, so first up we have focaccia with sottocenere, which is a cheese from Italy, and potatoes. So The Sottocenere is a cow's milk cheese. It's from the Veneto region in Italy, and it's laced with black truffles. And then it's also coated with this combination of spices, a rub of ash, nutmeg, coriander, cinnamon, licorice, cloves, and fennel. And the word Sottocenere actually literally translates into under the ashes, which is why it's called that. The rind is inedible. It says on the package, but it's made with spices. It's just that it's really strong, but it adds a little subtle, different kind of taste to the cheese. So the Sottocenere is something we sell here. It's a very nice semi-soft Italian cheese. And then Brian will tell you about the rest of it.
So to move off the Sottocenere real quick, it is an absolutely delicious cheese and it melts absolutely beautifully.
It's
It
one
is
of my favorites.
it's honestly one of my favorite melting cheeses at that. So the recipe is very, very straightforward again. Just to kind of prove that Chester Hastings really tries to do a minimal aspect when it comes to the cheese and the flavorings. The focaccia is just a very simple focaccia dough. In case you don't really know what that is, it's going to just be a very soft, oily Italian style bread. Typically, you're going to do it in a pan. You can use any form of casserole dish, just something typically deep. Mostly what you're going to be looking for is a little bit of elasticity, very oily, very rich, very filling, absolutely delicious if I'm being honest. The potatoes were just a very simple mandolin, slicing very thin, not doing anything super crazy. I did decide to do a little bit of a ruffle shape on the potatoes, do a little bit above and beyond. However, you don't need to do that at home unless you're feeling like it. And then simply taking the Sottocenere, putting it right on top and baking it. You will want to take your raw dough, put it in your pan, top with your potatoes, then bake it, finish with your cheese. About 20 minutes in the oven with the potatoes and the bread, and about 5 to 10 on broil with the Sottocenere, and then just finish it with some fried earth and fresh sage. You can fry it if you're looking for a little bit of extra nuttiness and crispiness from that.
I do want the fun thing about it, you can't quite see it because the potatoes melt into the cheese, but the way that it's described is the potatoes are laid out au cheval. So I'm probably not pronouncing that very French,
Oh, that was
but
perfect.
it means in horseback. And so it's like an overlapping pattern where the potatoes are shingled like dominoes on top of each other. So that the translation is that it's on horseback. So I think that's a super, like there's fun things like that included in the book that make them more interesting, intriguing to read.
Your French vocabulary will definitely improve. And then while Jeanette finishes up discussing this one, all I'm going to do is just kind of show everyone how we finish slicing it. When you have your really big, what I like to call slab of focaccia, all I usually do is just a nice thin slice down. And then all I'm going to do is just do very thin slices, almost like you would just any form of flatbread or anything like that. So anybody eating can just very simply grab a nice slice and then just munch away. And I'm not wearing gloves, so please don't yell at me, everybody, but you can just see that you get that nice leavening on that focaccia, that potatoes and all those cheese are just resting gently and beautifully on top. Absolutely delicious.
We'll have you coming back for more. Right. Slide that guy over here. It's a heavy duty word.
Good one. And what's the next one, Jeanette?
Then we're moving to France. We use French cheeses, I should say. So we have a brie de Nangy and roasted fennel sandwich. Brie de Nangy is a soft white ripened cheese, brie style. So the white mold makes it a brie style cheese. It ripens from the outside in. They're usually pretty thin, and they don't age very long. This is made just outside of Paris, the brie de Nangy. The cheese is selected by the affineur, who's the person who ages or ripens cheese. And they mature it on rye straw mats. Sorry, I got those mixed up. In local caves for 2 months. And that gives us a crusty, yeasty outside of the cheese on the rind. This is a natural rind cheese. And it also helps develop the flavor inside. You get a little bit of the earthy flavor, the mushroomy thing it's kind of called. It's definitely more pronounced than it is with the street, like the Hermitage brie that we sell. So the sweet flavor, so then there's roasted fennel, which Brian can tell you about how we did that. And then that works with the cheese in this recipe. And there's obviously, we started with a French baguette on the bottom. Go ahead and tell about the garnishes. and-
Yeah, so if you're feeling up to the challenge, feel free to make your own French baguettes. You're better than I am. Other than that, if you want to come to the co-op, we sell delicious baguettes. I highly encourage them. So that's all we did here. From there, I took 2 funnel bulbs. Julienne's very, very thin, pretty much as thin as I could physically get. I did put in half a white onion. That is up to you, the people eating it, if you wanted to do that. The reason I do that is because fennel has a very strong licorice flavor. To calm that down, some sweetness of an onion when you're caramelizing that produces a little bit of extra sugar to help ease into that black licorice taste that sometimes can be very strong. Other than that, all I truly did with it was just salt and pepper, a little bit of oil, and just cook that down and caramelize until you have a really nice, beautiful, almost jam coming off these onions and fennels. From there, a little bit of butter on the bread. Have the butter if you're going to be in France. Put those caramelized fennels and onion right on. Jeannette very talently shaved the brie. I don't know how she did that, but sprinkle that.
I've been cutting cheese for a long
Sure.
time. Brian's been cooking better longer than I have, but I've been cutting cheese for a long time.
So when you have these really nice thin slices, just layer them right on top, under the broiler, 5 minutes. And honestly, you can't have a better sandwich. This is one of my personal favorites. I top it with fresh rosemary.
Good view of this cheese, these little sandwiches here.
Yeah, but you can do any of these autumnal or poultry spices, rosemary, sage, thyme, anything like that's going to go beautifully with this. You guys can even at home season your onions and your fennel and things like that with a little bit of red wine vinegar, cooking sherry. Honestly, a little brandy or bourbon probably wouldn't hurt in that either. But honestly, this is one of my favorite things out of this cookbook. I've made this more times than I care to admit. You can even add sausage to it if you're looking for a little bit of a meatier bite to it. There's a lot of different things you could do with this. So this is absolutely one of my favorites. I would highly suggest trying this.
And then the recipe in the cookbook just suggests adding some sun-dried tomatoes on top with the oil, which is, we have the jar here, but we didn't want to soak it through, but either way, you can do it that way or without. Yeah, it's a nice combination.
It's absolutely delicious. The next one.
In our next flatbread sandwich, we have melted dauphinoise or the fromage or dauphinoise. Sorry, I always just call it dauphinoise. People are like, what cheese is that? I'm like, it's the one out there that says le fromage on it. Anyway, this is a little, this is a tiny label that's on, it just flies out of my case. So I'm sure many of you are very familiar with it. And it is amazing double cream cheese made in France. Fromager is just a person who makes cheese, and the dauphinoise, I do not know the exact meaning of that. But I can tell you how it's made. It's the super crowd pleasing cheese. It's very soft. What happened to it? Anyway, it's got white mold rind, ripened on the outside. It's very soft. It's kind of like butter, but when you cut it, it doesn't disappear on you. So it's ultra rich. It's double cream, which means that there's cream added to the milk before they make it. So it's a 60% fat double cream cow's milk cheese from the French Rhone Alps at most. And it is just creamy inside. The other, I'll just tell you that I thought that this is my part. I think that's fascinating about cheese is that what makes this cheese revolutionary and different from any of the other cheeses like that is that it's an ultrafiltration process, which removes the water from the pasteurized milk, and that distributes the fat molecules more evenly throughout the paste. This process allows the cheese to ripen in 2 weeks, so that's only a 2-week-old cheese, and it keeps that sweet, buttery flavor of the creamy milk without the earthy funk. It doesn't have that little mushroomy flavor we were just talking about with the brie de Nancy or the bries themselves. It's much fresher, tastes creamy, just like butter. And so Brian, I'll tell you about the sandwiches. We warmed these a little bit. You can also put it in a panini press, which we did not have the access to right here. And the gooey cheese will get even gooier. And the other thing that I like the description about is that it says, don't add more meat than you want, because this is a cheese sandwich with meat. This is not a meat sandwich with cheese. So we put some prosciutto, the Casello's prosciutto that we sell here is very nice, made in upstate New York by the Casella, Mr. Casella, who's a former Italian chef, came from Italy, but he's also chef in this country, runs restaurants, and learned the art of curing meats and started his own curing facility in Upper New York State. So that's the kind of prosciutto that we have in the cheese case. And Brian will tell us how. It's pretty basic, simple, but it's just the aromas are.
Yeah, so the only thing that really have to kind of warn people about on this one is you will get addicted to it. So unlike the other one, I did not butter this baguette. I did take this and simply put it in, slice it in half, throw it in the oven, do a very, very basic 5-minute warm in a 350-degree oven. From there, I did take the prosciutto, go as thin as you can get it. I know it can be very hard sometimes to peel nicely done prosciutto. However, do your best. No need to crumple it up like you would a ham or anything like that. And Jeanette said it perfectly. Prosciutto and most cured hams are very salty. A little bit goes a long way, especially because you're going to be using that double cream. That's going to act as that butter content. There's going to be a little bit of salt in there too. You really don't want to overdo the salt on this one. So my big encouragement would be is exactly what Jeanette said. I think Chester Hastings said too, which is just easy on the meat. A little bit goes a long way. Plus, it just means you can make more for more people, or you can just have a second time.
That's it.
Leftovers are my favorite.
That's also why you don't need butter on it either. You have the richness in the dauphinoise and the prosciutto. So
the only thing differently that I've done to this once or twice in the past is just some very simple, freshly cracked black pepper.
Perfect.
Other than that, I would say this one travels very, very well. I actually have taken something like this on like a hiking trip. Things like that. It does hold up very well and very beautifully. So I would say it is a good snacking one too.
It's for your adult hikes.
These-
And if you come to the store and you can't find the dauphinoise in the cheese department, please ask. I will show you exactly where it is. It stays in the same place, so you can always find it.
Are we ready for what's probably going to be everyone's favorite?
We are ready for the sweet treats, the dessert things.
Starting with
let's do you know, those are, everybody likes sweets, but I mean, they're not super sweet. They're just, we started with an apple tart with a triple cream. We used St. Andre and almonds and honey. So the basic tenet of this is apple pie with cheddar, but this is the grown-up version of apples in a tart with the St. Andre cheese. So St. Andre, I'll tell you about again, it's a white mold ripened cheese from France. You can use anything. We have St. Stephen, which is a white mold ripened made in New York State. You can use, there's an Adirondack we have that's made in New York State with a swash with a little bit of apple brandy. You could also use, they're all triple creams, which again means the dauphinoise was a double cream. So the triple creams means they've added even more cream to make those richer. So as opposed to the butteriness of the dauphinoise, they're very dense. And you think, oh, well, that can't be creamy because it's really hard. It's because there's so much cream in it. So they're very dense. And this one is produced in Normandy region of France, where there's, it has a high fat content. The heavy cream is added to the milk. It makes it dense, rich, and buttery. And then there's the velvety, bloomy white rind on the outside, and the inside becomes a white paste, the white dense paste for sure. All right, so Brian did this part, so it's so beautiful. I'm gonna let him tell you how he did it. And the smells coming from it are just amazing. It's very simple. I mean, there's like, 4, 5 ingredients, 6 ingredients.
Yeah, so it's very simple, but this is going to be a labor of love. So just like anything else when you're baking, I started with the tart dough. The tart dough is very, very extremely simple. Just going to be butter, flour, and we actually use a little bit of creme fraiche in that.
Yeah, this one had a creme fraiche.
So this is, I've done this tart dough a couple times, but they don't typically have creme fraiches in it. So just like any other standard tart dough, you're going to take your flour, you're going to cut your butter that's chilled or frozen. I highly encourage freezing your butter before doing anything like that. Also makes a very nice pie dough for watchers at home. From there, you're going to take it and cut it in using either your fingers, a pastry cutter, or a Cuisinart blender, something like that. So you have a fine powder, and the butter is basically cut in. You almost physically can't even tell the difference. From there, you're going to add your creme fraiche until you have a dough forming. You might need to supplement with some cold ice water. The reason you want to do cold ice water is because you're trying to prevent that butter from heating up. You do not want that butter getting too warm, or you're going to lose all that flakiness in that tart. From there, all I did was take some apples, core them, peel them. I prefer Granny Smiths. We do live in New England. Macintosh work too. Just remember to give those ones a peel the skin has a tendency to be a little extra bitter. From there, slice them very, very thin, probably 1/16 of an inch. I'd say even thinner than an 1/8 of an inch. This pattern, let's not slide that. So this pattern is a very typical French pattern called alvatine. Alvatine is considered to be a very typical bakery or baked good. Really, all you're doing is you're going to kind of very delicately shingle circles and kind of form a spiral with them. I'm going to be honest, the biggest place people have seen this is if you've seen the movie Ratatouille, you've definitely seen that style of presentation done before. From there, I took these apples, sauteed them in a little bit of butter and honey. I know honey sounds weird, just wait for it. From there, let them soak in all these syrup for about 5 minutes. You're going to flip that in right into the tart. This tart dough, you do not need to blind bake or anything. All you're going to have to do is just make sure you dock it, a fork, 12 stabs of the fork, release some aggression. And then from there, you're just going to put these nice soaked apples right into your tart, 20 minutes. If you have a tart pan, like I did on these mini ones, it'll be very easy. Just pop the bottom out. I used a springform pan for this one. And if you are using a springform pan at home, don't be afraid to trim the edges of the tartlet like I did here to make for a nice even top layer. And then just simply garnish with any of that leftover syrup, fresh sage leaves, and then of course your triple cream. Throw it under the broiler with that triple cream 5 minutes. It's going to look like it almost disappeared, and that's almost what you're looking for.
You can't see it, but it's definitely in there. I saw him put it in there.
And it's going to melt, but the flavor is going to come in very, very subtly, very beautifully when you're eating it. This is another one that honestly, Sunday brunches I've made like this before, and they always fly out. Garnish with toasted almonds, walnuts. You can also take those, and if you want to dust them with cinnamon sugar, give them a roast in that too. A little bit of extra sweetness never hurts on this one.
And that's again where the honey works with the triple cream.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seems like it'd be too rich and too sweet and just too many things, but it's not.
This is the benefit of having honey as a natural sugar instead of cane sugar, instead of those processed sugars that a lot of people have. Honey is just so much less fake sugary sweet that your body can just handle more of it. Honey's fantastic. Yeah. I always highly encourage it.
And you can also, you tend to use less of it when it's like honey.
Oh, absolutely. This whole recipe. So for 2 small tartlets and this was 2 tablespoons of honey. So it was not a lot of honey, but it melts down beautifully. The natural sugars don't dissolve like a lot of other fake sugars do or cane sugars do. It's absolutely fantastic. And honestly, this tart dough you can use for pretty much anything. You could even go savory if you guys wanted to.
And doesn't the juice come out of the apples to mix with the honey to thicken it up?
Exactly. Like you get those natural fruit. Exactly. You end up almost like a caramel jam kind of consistency between the butter. And in fact, you're going to want to do another French term called mounting, where you're going to take chilled pieces of very square butters and you're just going to throw it into your sauce while it's off the heat. Let it melt naturally. That's called mounting, and that's just how to give a very nice velvety back of the spoon smooth sauce.
Nice. This is why I brought Brian along, because he knows more about this baking stuff than I do. I can tell you about the cheese, but I can't tell you about all these nuances. All right, a few more. These are just simple things that we're gonna do here with desserts. I'm a fan of Effie's. They're biscuits, crackers, cookies, multiple use that you can use. So I have ginger ones here that and I have a blue cheese. This is the old Chatham Blue Moon. You could use the Midi Blue, you can use Danish Blue. Any of those things will work. And this is Side Hill plum paste, which is thicker than a jam. You can see in there it's like thick, but it's not as thick as the quince paste that we have, but you can just put sorry, it's probably too much. I like dollops, big dollops. So just a nice like a ginger cookie crumble. I have a little bit crumbled here in the bowl. You can just put some crumbles on top. A really nice, simple thing to go alongside your other desserts. So my other Effie's little things here I also brought this guy. So these are the Effie's cocoa ones.
Those are my favorite out of all of them.
All right, let's put those up there.
I do like the cocoa ones.
And again, this is a simple, there's Effie's has a fair amount of recipes on their website as well. So these are actually, some of these are from there. So the cocoa ones, mascarpone dollop, a little bit of fresh berries, blackberries, which we use. So mascarpone is Italian style cultured cream cheese. You could use creme fraiche too, but again, very simple, but very eye-catching. And it just, simple flavors, just a little cheese, a little fruit, a little cracker, crisp thing. They're not super sweet cookies. So they can be used with jams as well. All right, and then the other one.
Oh, you're
You can talk about this one. So these are the pecan Effie's crackers, crisps. But you can talk about this part. So they're gonna go with this fun thing that we made here. You talk about that one.
So these are, I believe Jeanette just got this one in, the Hillbean Farms sweet goat chev. So I think a lot of you know that goat chev has a tendency to be a little earthy, a little funky, a little barnyardy, as I like to call it.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. This one is very opposite of that. This is borderline cream cheese sweet. It is absolutely delicious. It is one of my new favorite cheeses. I've been using on everything. So that being said, all I really did with this, well, actually Jeanette is the one that made really, really nice little chev balls. You can do that by simply taking plastic wrap, a little dollop of your chev, tight wrapping that ball into a nice little perfect sphere, throwing it into your fridge, and it'll form and harden that way. If you don't want to necessarily do a ball, you can kind of just do any shape. You can make little discs. That being said, all we really did with this one is take golden raisins, soak them in brandy for about half an hour. No need to cook the brandy. If you're feeling extra, you can save that brandy that those raisins do infuse a little bit. It is a little nice at the end of a cocktail. I actually have done that once or twice before too. Other than that, golden raisins soaked in brandy are actually a really, really great thing that you can have on almost everything here. Between the apple tartlet, the mascarpone cheese, even the blue cheese, those raisins are going to pair with almost everything we've displayed today. So it is just kind of a nice thing to have in the background.
And it's also, again, it's just a really simple dessert, so you spend your time making an apple tart and then you make a couple simple things in case people want the different flavors. And if it was the other season where back in the spring, the goat chev just with really little edible flowers, you just put one, like a little pansy, a little violet on top of a little ball of goat cheese. It's really amazing. Really amazing, simple, but the eye-catchiness will just really right in.
Yeah, I mean, in my past cooking experience, I've used edible orchids of every single variety to have such an eye-popping appeal. They can be difficult to find sometimes, but with some tenacity and valiant effort, I think if anyone can find edible flowers, they make such an outstanding garnish. And honestly, the floral flavor that does come from those will actually accentuate pretty much everything we've posted again.
Right.
And out of everything, I will say that those brandied raisins and the sweet chev.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be absolutely beautiful. It'll be a very nice meld of flavors.
I mean, it's a different color sort of season than like the spring, but it's like still there's always beautiful fall colors.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when people think of autumnal colors and fall colors, they think of the browns, the reds, the oranges, and there's really great colors in there. But there's ways to accentuate these white that you get off the rinds, and simply, even though these are blackberries and black doesn't seem like a very eye-appealing color, that contrast with the white mascarpone is sometimes all you need to really have that eye appeal. So I think with fall time food, especially living in New England, we have such a wide variety and array of colors and vegetables at this time that a lot of other people don't have, that I think we should always have the opportunity to play around and just see what pairs with what, what pairs with what cheese, and just go off of that, have fun with it.
Right, cooked or raw, the like apples go with all sorts of things, but they're very different when you cook them or when they're raw, or
I'm a cheddar cheese on my apple pie kind of guy every year, so.
And the last one we have for you today is this little beauty that we cooked in our plate. So this is a baked brie with this is a sort of a what's the word? A Mid-Eastern type recipe. It has pistachios and figs and drizzled with honey. So this is good where you're just gonna use a whole thing, a whole piece of a small brie. We have Vermont Farmstead brie. This is a Camembert brie from Blue Ledge, cow's milk. We also have the Old Chatham has a goat brie that you could use.
It smells beautifully.
It's called New Moon. So you're just gonna oil the bottom of the pan or a little skillet if you want to use that. Put your brie in there. We're just gonna throw some pistachios on top. So we can't get open right now. Okay, these are the mission dried figs from the bulk aisle. You just cut these guys in half. And you have these beautiful, the seeds inside. I think there's also, it's fresh fig season right now too, isn't it? I think
Correct.
I've seen them in the produce section.
Stone fruit right now, yes, all that stuff.
Probably make them with fresh figs too, just a little bit different taste. And then I just took a little bit of honey and drizzled it on top of that.
Now, is that wildflower? What kind of honey is that?
This is, I don't know, this is just raw honey. I love raw honey.
Don't be afraid to use wildflower honey and honeys that may have a little bit of a floral accent to them too in this situation. Again, floral notes are definitely welcomed in a lot of these kind of desserts, sides, anything like that.
And and then you're gonna throw it in the oven it depends. It kind of depends how thick your brie is. Like the first one I tried, it said 20-25 minutes. And I'm like, wait, that's like this big mush in the pan. So that was too much. I think it just depends on the thickness of your brie. These I ended up doing about 15 to 18 minutes. And this oven at the store was different than my one at home because it's a different kind of oven. So and then, again, you could use any of these crisp crackers, or you can just do it with a spoon. But you'll see that it's like, I tried this at home a couple times. So I was like, we need to have this more than once. My daughter was really into it too. So I'm just having a little harder to get through the rind, but you can see it's nice and soft inside. I could eat melted cheese all the time. Cheese melts is just fantastic. Again, a little bit of savoriness, the saltiness from the pistachios with the honey and the cheese, the richness of the cheese. It's just makes a really yummy treat.
And so something else I've done with this recipe before, I've done baked bries at home many times. Pistachios are fantastic for this season. I do love them right now. You can, as I think I mentioned earlier, you can take your nuts and your seeds and those kinds of things, and you can oven roast them to get a little bit of a darker depth out of those, a little bit more buttery and nuttiness out of them. You can also toss them in cinnamon sugar if you're looking for a little more of a sweet thing like that.
And that's also that Mid-Eastern kind of flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Those warming spices are going to be your biggest friend, what I think, when it comes to baked bries in the autumnal season. Think about those corianders, those cardamoms, cinnamon, all those delicious warming spices. That's all the stuff that you're going to want to eat right now.
You can also do the brie en croûte, or you bake it in a puff pastry.
You can do phyllo dough if you're going for a little more on the Middle Eastern side as well.
So those are our offerings. I'm sorry you're not here to taste them with us. We hope you're inspired a little by our tantalizing cheese recipes, and you're ready to make your own. It smells really good in here. And you can use them at a tailgate party. You can have them at your brunch. But they definitely, you can pack up these little sandwich things and you can take all these little things with you, and just open it up and it's pretty much done. It's like a picnicky kind of thing. You can't always sit in the grass at this time of year. It's so chilly, but sometimes, you just put them and wrap the sandwiches in parchment paper. You have the focaccia. All these things are definitely like portable foods.
Yeah. Also, everything's very easy to stage. A lot of everything, even though we decided to make fresh, you can very easily get pre-made tart doughs. You can very easily get pre-made baguettes,
Right.
So there are things that you can even buy pre-made focaccia here at the co-op as well. And so I always encourage to do whatever you guys feel comfortable doing in your own kitchen. If you feel like experimenting and playing around, have some fun with these ideas. Play around with some bread, play around with some tart doughs. Otherwise, I would just say make some stuff, eat the cheese and enjoy it. That's what it's
You know,
for.
and our favorite thing, you know, to end with is that we would love feedback and comments. If you have any for us, you know, about what you liked, or if you made spin-offs, or you have a better recipe, we would love to hear about it, or what cheeses you use.
Yeah, photos, anything like that.
Yeah, photos are always fun. So, I think that's all we have for today.
Are there any open questions?
Oh, yeah, we have questions or comments. Anybody wants to share with us? You know, you can also just come in and tell us in person, because sometimes I get feedback a couple weeks after the shows. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. I feel like maybe nobody's out there listening to us, but I know you are, so we appreciate it. And again, thank you.
I would just be busy getting used to the kitchen now after watching this, that's all.
I know, I know. You can go practice your own. You got a couple hours before dinner, you can just have one of these things for dinner, you know?
No, honestly, everybody, these are some things that I truly think you can take with you. They're very easily traveled with. And they are going to be a little bit of a labor of love. And these are something that I think you guys can share with your friends and family. And I think especially given this time of the year and the season, it's the time for it. So I would always encourage putting any labor of love into food around this time.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.